Idols are stunning stars who charm everyone. They shine bright and dance to glamorous music. Their beauty and talent draw endless admiration. And now one of them has moved next door to our protagonist. Now walking down the street, a girl happily skips along, calling him Kazuki-senpai and reminding him about his assignment since he's the only one who hasn't submitted it yet. Curious, he asks about her music assignment, calling her Sina. Excitedly, she explains her love for anime songs, even mimicking some of them with lively gestures. He grows annoyed, not quite understanding before abruptly changing the subject and asking why she's following him home. In response, she nervously laughs, expressing concern that he'll only survive on the cup noodles if left alone, so she'll cook for him, which excites him. He smiles cleverly and asks about her real motive for doing this for him. She sadly places her head against the wall and, embarrassed, asks for his help with studying in return, explaining that she might have to repeat the whole year if she fails 2 more tests. He jokingly says he was hoping for something this year as well. While crying, she explains the truth that she has no second chance if she fails the major subject again. He now understands the entire situation. With a deep exhale and a quick glance, he suggests they go shopping first, and then he agrees to help her. After shopping, as they climb the stairs, he, while holding the grocery bags, warns her to be careful as her feet nearly slip. Curious, she asks why he stays at such a creepy place. He sadly explains he can't rely on his family, so he settled for a cheap place, adding with a hopeful smile that he plans to stay until graduation. As they finally reach the apartment, Sina, too drained from climbing the stairs, offers to let him stay at her place. However, with a worried tone, he mentions that it might cost him more. With a playful grin and sharp wit, she sneakily snatches the key from his pocket and dashes off to unlock his apartment. But just as she does, both freeze in shock. A mysterious girl, barely concealing her identity under dark goggles and a hat, sits nervously at the center of her apartment doorway and calls out to them. Upon spotting her, Sina decides not to interfere and swiftly enters his apartment. He shouts after her, reminding her about the shopping she needs. But his words are cut short when the suspicious girl, now trembling and tearful, desperately asks if Sina is his girlfriend. He instantly denies it, but the girl assumes it to be true and slams her door shut with all her strength and locks it from inside. As he enters the apartment, Sina puts the groceries in the fridge as instructed. They eat while studying, but soon she grows frustrated, exhausted from dealing with non-music subjects at her music university. While checking her test, he teases her for sharing the same study irritation as other musicians, unlike him. She thanks him for helping her avoid failing, and he praises her cooking. In a sing-song tone, he stubbornly insists she keep making delicious meals, earning an irritated glare. Changing the subject, she asks about his assignment. He switches on the TV and casually replies that he finished it 19 hours ago. On TV, the host introduces the long-absent cool beauty idol group Mirage, hyping the crowd to welcome them. She freezes in shock. They haven't appeared in a while, yet they're still wildly influential. Realizing he often sees this idol, he suddenly and emotionally reveals he bought 10 copies of their latest single, surprising her, which doesn't match his calm personality. Curious, she asks if he likes any of them, but before she finishes, he quickly points out the girl in the center. Without noticing her shocked and tired expression, he excitedly tells her about the idol, Tuju Mitsuki, praising her graceful aura, cute charm, and impressive singing and dancing. His eyes still fixed on the screen, he adds they rank 3rd this time, not too far from the top. After that, she wearily asks if he could finish her assignment. When he casually hands it over, already completed, she's stunned and curious how he managed it without even touching a piano. He playfully says he had plenty of free time, while she was just sighing in frustration. She seems a little annoyed by his unusual behavior today. Then, when he boldly asks if she's honestly praising him or just messing around, she quickly gathers herself and softly says she truly means it. Blushing a bit, she also shyly admits that she thinks he's becoming more mature. At that moment, she notices the piano covered with a white cloth and piled with various items. Curious, she asks why he doesn't play it anymore. He casually places the remote on the table and admits that he played it so much during university that he's now completely bored with it. She doesn't respond right away but stands up, thanks him for his help, and offers to treat him as a reward. As he stands up and offers to walk her to the station, she instantly teases him and insists she'll go by herself. As she excitedly walks down the stairs, she cheerfully calls out, telling him to feel free to call her anytime he wants a tasty meal as payment for tutoring her. As she leaves, he suddenly recalls that she had asked why he stopped playing the piano, and that memory lingers in his mind. Unintentionally, he begins tapping his fingers on the railing like piano keys while gazing at the dark sky. Realizing it, he stops, stares at his hands, and then quietly walks back into his room. Just then, his suspicious neighbor peeks from her door again, scolding him loudly for bringing a girl over. Puzzled and wary of her odd behavior, he's about to close the door when she suddenly calls out, "Kazakh-kun." Shocked that she knows his name, he freezes, then panic sets in as he remembers that only one person ever called him that. In that instant, the girl removes her hat and goggles, gently taps her cheeks, and bursts into emotional laughter, overjoyed to be his neighbor again. As he prepares tea, the TV announces True Mirage's new album. Hearing it, he's reminded of how much she adored his piano playing, always dancing to his tunes, saying she loved Kazakh-kun's music. Now she sits silently with her hands on her knees, looking downcast. He quietly places a cup of tea in front of her and gently suggests Mizuki-san to drink it. Surprised by his formal tone, she stiffly accepts the mug and takes a sip. Meanwhile, he finally understands why she always panicked whenever he was friendly with a girl, always asking for their names with suspicion. Just then, this girl inches closer and asks the same question. He exhales, flustered, since Mizuki is now a nationally recognized idol. Calming himself, he explains that she was just a junior from university, more like a little sister to him. When she asks if she's like Akemi-chan, he nods. He goes on to praise Sina's musical talent, though he admits she struggled in other subjects. He also expresses gratitude for how she helped him with cooking, but his voice turns soft with worry. He's concerned she might fail this year. While his guest feels a sting of jealousy, she forces a smile and calms herself, realizing he's simply worried in a brotherly way. As he tries to change the subject, he casually asks why she moved to this place. To his shock, she cheerfully replies, it's because she wanted to be his neighbor. She then brings up how painful their earlier separation was. He recalls how, even after being scouted 3 times, she refused to leave just to chase fame as an idol because she didn't want to part with him. Back then, he had gently patted her head and told her, become Japan's top idol first, then come back as his neighbor. He remembers saying it lightly, but clearly she took it seriously. Now, with sparkling eyes and a blush, she suddenly adds that once she becomes number 1, she wants to do a marriage interview with him. That floors him. Then, as if trying to soften the blow, she sheepishly mentions she's still only in 3rd place, before laughing excitedly and promising that once she's Japan's top idol, she'll come live with him. Stunned and overwhelmed, he sits frozen, half convinced she must be joking. Although he knows she became an idol for him, and though he started as just her fan, he feels helpless and unsure of his own words. His thoughts are interrupted when she suddenly lies in his lap, holding his face, concerned about his stiff expression. He brushes off her worries, then curiously asks if she's the same person as the one on TV. When she realizes he's referring to her TV show, she excitedly looks at the screen and praises her idol, Kiri-chan, for her skills. She explains how they've been preparing for the show for 3 months, and how this type of interview was something they'd practiced together. As they continue watching, the interviewer asks her about her thoughts on the word idol. Calmly and gracefully, she replies that idols, including herself and her friends, are a medium to share their skills with everyone. Hearing her answer, he feels a bit sad as he watches her, sensing her complicated feelings about the interview. He affectionately taps her head and asks what her real feelings are about becoming an idol. At that moment on TV, the interviewer asks her the same question, to which she responds sweetly that she enjoys singing and dancing. But now with him, she pauses and playfully says she forgot the main reason. Looking down at her peacefully sleeping in his lap, he remembers when he'd asked her the same question earlier. Back then, she excitedly declared that idols belong to everyone, but she only belongs to him. He feels sad, knowing she's making unusual efforts, even working on solo projects outside the group, all to become the best and eventually be by his side. He also wonders if there's another reason behind it and feels anxious, thinking she might be exhausted, especially since she's now sleeping in his room. Suddenly, the reality hits him, she's an idol, and panic sets in. He rushes to the window, scolding himself for missing the bigger picture, and tries to wake her up. But she just laughs in her sleep, smiling peacefully as she enjoys his scent. He becomes increasingly worried, sweat beading on his face, unsure of what to do. He knows a relationship like theirs is completely forbidden in their society, and this could jeopardize her identity as an idol. His mind races, should he call Sena, the agency, or just carry her to her room? but he dismisses all the ideas, remembering the keypad lock on her door and her masked identity when she first peeked at him. The thought of aggressive photographers following celebrities makes him even more panicked. Just as he nears a solution, she calls him, tired but gently holding his hand. She tells him to do their best together, as she's already given her all. Calmly, he sits beside her, realizing how much effort she's putting in, something anyone could see. Watching her sleep in his lap, he feels helpless as she hasn't changed from the child he once knew. The next morning, she wakes up to find Kazu-kun sleeping peacefully, looking like a baby with his mouth open. Amused by his adorable drooling, she takes several pictures of him from different angles, adding them to a folder on her phone labeled Kazu-kun. As she looks at him, she smiles, touching his face affectionately, noting how much healthier he looks. Her mind drifts to their past. She remembers his encouragement before her practice, their middle school days when she danced and tried writing lyrics to his songs, and how, during high school, the pressure to perform and constantly play the piano drained his joy. Despite winning a major tournament and receiving a scholarship, she was the only one who knew that performance would be his last. Though he entered a music university, he stopped playing the piano altogether. Tapping him gently while he's still sleeping, she emotionally admires his past efforts. She recalls his earlier question about her purpose for becoming an idol and mimics her past joy. She used to dance and sing along to his music because he seemed to enjoy it so much, and she wanted others to experience that same happiness. Closing her eyes, she wishes he remembers those fun days they shared. Before leaving his room, she quietly opens the door, determined to be by his side and hoping one day they'll share that happiness with everyone. She ties her hair back, thinking that if he ever returned to playing the piano, she would be right there with him. With renewed motivation, she sets her goal to work even harder, aiming to become the top idol and share Kazu-kun's music with the whole nation. The next day in his college, Kazuki stands emotionlessly in front of the professors near the piano, introducing himself as Fujita Kazuki, number 17, a third-year composition major. In the audience, Sina is the only one excitedly cheering him on. One of the professors, after checking his file, confirms that he will be playing Chopin's Waltz No. 9, also known as the Farewell Waltz, and Kazuki agrees. He sits at the piano, feeling confident despite not having touched a piano in a while, relying on his Fujita family's legacy. Yet he can't help but feel a bit sad, wishing for a peaceful meal after the performance. Afterwards, as Kazuki completes his performance, Sina, shocked, loudly asks why he changed the song from the Minute Waltz. He emotionlessly explains that he changed it 2 days ago. Sina, still surprised, asks him the reason, and Kazuki offers a vague explanation. He just felt like it. This frustrates her, and she holds her head in her hands, surprised that he changed the piece 3 days ago, yet still played it perfectly. Sina is still unsatisfied with his answer, so she asks if he's overlooking something by ignoring the emotional weight of Chopin's piece. She explains how the composer wrote the Farewell Waltz after reuniting with his love. He, irritated, reminds her that their separation was inevitable and doesn't want to discuss it further. Sina then asks why he chose to play the Farewell Waltz this time. He, with a sad smile, simply replies that he felt like playing it. She, unimpressed, grumbles but then shifts topics, suddenly excited. She asks if he's hungry, and when he mentions heading to the cafeteria, she eagerly pushes him in that direction. As both step out of the performance room, they are confronted with a huge crowd. Students are rushing to see the performance of Uzura Mao, a rising star in the music world. Kazuki, confused by the large crowd, asks Sina if Uzura is like an idol to her. He wonders whether she plans to stay and watch as part of the audience. She, clearly annoyed, pushes him to leave, not wanting to stay in the crowded space herself. However, both of them are caught off guard when Uzura approaches, calling out to Kazuki by his full name, Fujita. He turns around, surprised by her unusually excited behavior, and waves indifferently, wishing her good luck. This only irritates her, who shouts at him to listen to her perfect performance. She demands to know why he's leaving. He, with an emotionless tone, replies that he's just looking forward to enjoying the empty cafeteria now that everyone is gathered here. This answer makes her even angrier, and she pulls him by his collar, insisting that he stay and listen to her performance. In return, she offers them a special seat. Now both sit nervously on the stage, speechless at the unique privilege of sitting on stage itself. The same professor who had confirmed Kazuki's piece earlier now announces that Uzura has chosen Franz Liszt's Transcendental for her performance. She agrees, and Sina, annoyed and exhausted, mutters about how terrible her choice of music is. She also mimics him, jokingly recalling how she was still angry about not getting the top spot in the entrance exams 3 years ago. She watches in awe as the crowd cheers for her and marvels at the sheer number of her devoted fans. Both of them fall silent when they notice Uzura glaring at them. As she begins playing, the powerful melody fills the room, creating an overwhelming atmosphere. Even Sina, despite her irritation, can't help but be impressed by the intensity of Uzura's performance. After completing her performance, she stands confidently in front of the judges. He is impressed by her confidence and challenging nature. Sina also emotionally admires her, knowing that she played to win. The audience watches, cheering and admiring her. Kazuki, moved by the music, shares that he was inspired by the lyrics. Before he can say more, Uzura approaches them, proudly informing them about her win and also S+ marks over the past 3 years. He humbly admires her, then shares that he usually gets C's or B's. He mentions his Excellence Award and his involvement in the group stage at the Eurasian International last year. Uzura, annoyed, scolds him for giving up performing and angrily walks away. As she leaves, she stops to inform him that she's going to Vienna for university studies and suggests he come to listen to her last concert at the end of the semester. Kazuki calmly agrees, which only frustrates her more. After witnessing Uzura's powerful performance, Sina felt so inspired that she hurried home to write some lyrics. Meanwhile, Kazuki heads back to his apartment, his mind drifting to the fact that he hasn't seen Mitsuki recently. But his thoughts are quickly interrupted when he sees her lying unconscious in the corridor. Panic grips him as he rushes toward her, unsure whether to call a doctor or her agency. As he touches her, she tiredly opens her eyes, and he breathes a sigh of relief to see her conscious. However, he immediately carries her to his apartment. Though she's in pain, she weakly informs him that her muscles hurt from overworking herself. Once in his room, he carefully checks her legs. He's impressed by her dedication, but also concerned about her well-being. She, wincing from pain, explains that she's been practicing so much lately that climbing the stairs has stiffened her legs. He advises her not to push herself too hard, warning her that it could be dangerous. As he helps her stretch her legs, she cries out in pain, but soon the cramp begins to ease. She, relieved, smiles despite the lingering discomfort. She happily admits that, despite the pain, her hard work is worth it, especially with Kazuki's help. He prepares the warm water and gives her a massage, smiling as he asks if she has any concerns about being seen with him. Considering she's a top idol, she calmly explains that their manager arranged to secure the surrounding properties, so there would be no issue. This leaves him impressed. When she adds that they wouldn't be able to buy the Kageri Instruments Company, which seems to belong to Kazuki's family, he's a little shocked. Changing the topic, he asks if she is still performing well in music. She calmly explains that anyone can have fun without winning, but for true happiness and enjoyment, winning is essential. The winner can be selfish and treated well. She then sorrowfully shares that a friend of hers quit because when someone makes winning their main goal and fails, it can break them and lead them to quit. As he listens to her, he recalls how Uzura, despite winning the performance, wasn't happy. Sina also asks him about his remarks on the performance. Thinking about this, he stands up excitedly, removes the cloth from the piano, and suggests she sing something to his music. This surprises her, and she suggests that he play without looking at the score. Previously, he had played like a robot to stay grounded, but as he imagines her still beside him, he finds the strength to play with emotion once more. He recalls a memory sitting in front of the piano and seeing the music files to select one for him to play. Seeing that it's written in both Italian and English and contains only tadpole notes, she becomes impressed that he simply looks at it and starts playing the piano. Finally, she excitedly chooses a certain beat and places it in front of the piano, suggesting he play it. He immediately understands that she's talking about For Elise and becomes a little puzzled as he recalls her past, joyful expression at his impressive performance. Now he sits in front of the piano with a worried face because he hates this piece, Air on the G string, and Turkish March. But just imagining her pleasant and excited expression makes him smile and motivates him to at least try. He tells himself it's okay to play without perfection. But as memories of being pressured to play only to win resurface, he once again feels disheartened and mentally exhausted. His thoughts are interrupted when she happily and excitedly praises his beautiful piano playing. Looking at his face, she asks if anything's wrong. Although he's confused, he brushes it off and tries to play again. But he's shocked when she suddenly approaches the piano and curiously asks if he changed the melody midway, something that surprises even him. Her joyful smile gently erases the fear he's carried for 3 years about playing the piano. As he plays and she watches with pure excitement and delight, he cheerfully informs her that it's okay to loop her fingers underneath or even adjust the tempo. Now, as he continues playing, she becomes emotionally moved, dancing with such grace and freedom as if she's floating through the air, her movements heartfelt and full of life. Then she asks him for his thoughts, and when he completely turns around and compliments her dance with sudden, affectionate admiration, she becomes flustered. When he fondly explains that seeing her, a pro dancer, moving in such a sweet and completely different way than on TV amazes him, she feels both happy and surprised. Realizing the time, he quickly starts gathering the scattered sheets, informing her about the apartment rules, which only allow playing music at certain times. This makes her visibly sad, and she immediately calls her manager to purchase the place, but he quickly stops her from doing so. Seeing her pouty, disappointed expression, he promises that next time he'll play more piano just for her, which instantly brightens her mood. As he once again points out the piano, he shares that he had no plans to use it initially, so he bought a second-hand one, and its sound is a bit shaky. But mid-sentence, he freezes in shock as she once again calls her manager, this time to buy him a brand new piano. He immediately stops her again. Feeling helpless, she rests her head on the table, wishing she could do something for him. Then, as if a light bulb turns on, she lifts her head and joyfully suggests taking him to a place where he can buy a second-hand piano at a much cheaper rate, something that completely shocks him, as a music student who had no idea such a place existed. Seeing his stunned reaction, she sadly asks if he doesn't want to go with her, which he quickly denies, so with excitement twinkling in her eyes, she decides they'll visit that place on Saturday. Now at the university during lunchtime, Kazuki is calmly eating his lunch when Sina, nearly half lying on the table, excitedly shows him her cell phone featuring a super popular anime. While he reminds her about her upcoming exams, she keeps rambling about the godlike anime season, Valkyria Chronicles, curiously asking if he's seen it too. She then skips the first 8 episodes, calling them spoiled and boring, and eagerly talks about the thrilling 9th episode where the protagonist wakes up. When Kazuki casually says that's a spoiler, she emotionally defends it as necessary for the sake of their comrades. He calmly mentions the anime's season title, Before the Rapiers Strike, making her gasp and teasingly accusing him of secretly watching it too. Kazuki, noticing the cafeteria crowd, quietly asks her to tone it down and reminds her about her exams. The scene transitions to the exam hall where Sina, now graceful and composed, confirms to the judges that her free performance piece is Before the Rapiers Strike. While sitting in the audience, Kazuki feels extremely nervous for her, especially since she also chose an anime song last year. Now standing on stage, Sina looks at him with a mix of hope and anxiety before gripping the mic. He sadly recalls that her performing arts course is aimed at training singer-songwriters. He also remembers how, during lunch, she had desperately admitted she couldn't sing or play properly, only to suddenly declare with excitement that this song brings out a flood of power from her soul. As she begins to play and sing, the entire hall falls into stunned silence, only to erupt in applause at her passionate performance. Even Kazuki is shocked by how outstanding she sounds, but soon his attention shifts to a suspicious-looking girl in the audience who's observing Sina closely. The crowd is amazed that a gyro-like girl pulled off Sasaka Michiru's anime song so perfectly. Some whisper about her trembling at the start, but everyone agrees her performance was incredible. One person even jokes about treating her to god-tier ramen as a reward. Later, after the exams, Sina is joyfully slurping down ramen and loudly praising its deliciousness, making even the chef smile. He turns around and asks if she wants anything else, since the meal is on Kazuki, her caring senpai. Following her suggestion, the chef places a plate of kimchi fried rice in front of her. Curiously, she asks why Kazuki brought her to this hidden spot. Calmly, he explains it's a reward for her incredible performance, which makes her even more excited. When he affectionately pats her head, she's overwhelmed with emotion. At that moment, the TV announces that Sasaka Michiru's Before the Rapier Strike has hit #1 on the music charts. Kazuki, thinking of Tour Mira, who is in 3rd place, decides to buy 10 CDs. The TV continues discussing the song, and Sina excitedly shouts about the song's godlike power, explaining how it inspired her to perform so brilliantly during her exams. While they're talking, a suspicious girl behind them is whispering to someone. Suddenly, she approaches them, and with a surprised look, asks if Sina is the one who performed at the Imperial College of Music. as Sina nervously but politely introduces herself as Kagari Sina, a second-year student. The masked lady compliments her name and suddenly asks a bold question about her virginity, shocking everyone. A man adjusts his glasses and interrupts, questioning the lady for being too direct, but she insists the question is important. Realizing the situation, she gently turns to Sina, holds her hands with passion and praises her recent performance, even mimicking the emotions and sounds. Then, stepping closer again, she expresses her deep admiration for Sina's talent, leaving her surprised. Excitedly, she invites Sina to join the entertainment world. Still in shock, Sina hesitantly shares her wish to add lyrics to Kazuki's piano pieces. She then emotionally reveals her dream of bringing happiness to people through her heartfelt singing. The masked lady is impressed by her dream, even moving the chef emotionally. She then gracefully offers to support Sina if she wants to become an idol, singer, or songwriter. While Sina looks at Kazuki with a hint of sadness, she apologizes for her selfishness, but he brushes it off with a smile, happy for her opportunity. As Sina talks to him, the masked lady suddenly approaches with an assertive attitude and bluntly asks if Kazuki is her boyfriend. Sina immediately agrees, causing the woman to turn her face away in disappointment. Kazuki, confused by Sina suddenly calling him her boyfriend, becomes even more shocked when she avoids making eye contact. The lady, still disheartened, reconfirms whether Sina truly has a boyfriend. Then, with a wink, she removes her mask and goggles, gently suggesting Sina should choose a different career path instead of becoming an idol. Both Kazuki and Sina are stunned by her unmasked face. As she stands there, a calm man approaches and reminds her not to mingle too much with ordinary people, but she proudly declares that, as a senior, she's simply guiding her juniors. Kazuki finally recognizes her. She's Sasaoka Michiru, the cutest and most popular member of Misty Eyes, and the rival of the cool beauty idol group True Mirage. Though both Mitsuki and Sasaoka are top idols, Sasaoka stands out with a larger fan base. While he is still thinking about her, the cafeteria owner, looking down sadly, mentions that Michiru once graduated from the same college. She dismisses it casually, saying she's been too busy to remember. The owner also reminds her of how much she once loved this place. But their conversation is suddenly interrupted when Sina lowers her head sadly and asks Michiru-chan about her earlier concern. Michiru, with a graceful tone, explains that being an idol means you can't be someone else. Having a boyfriend, she says, would only hurt the fans. Then, with a playful excitement, she shares the 3 golden rules of being a perfect idol. Never talk about pooping, your body belongs to everyone, and no relationships or boyfriends allowed. Although she admits these rules might seem outdated, she was taught them herself and now passes them on. She tells Sina that idols must never show anything improper, even if it exists, and that idols and fans must give their all to one another. Just then, their talk is cut off again as the man in the black coat steps in and reminds Michiru to leave. Annoyed, she snaps at him for always rushing things, but the man approaches Sina calmly, introduces himself as Manager Nakazaki, and hands her a card. As Sina looks at it, Michiru waves goodbye and tells her to contact her anytime if she wants to become an idol. She proudly promises to make her the number 2 idol, just behind the current 3rd-ranked group, True Mirage. Michiru also praises the members of True Mirage, guessing they might be around Sina's age. While the manager listens attentively, Michiru admits she's not quitting the industry yet. Even if she leaves the top spot, the other members of True Mirage are brilliant enough to take it. Sina, still curious and sad, asks how long Michiru plans to stay in the spotlight. With confidence, Michiru puts on her goggles and hat again and declares that she'll stay as long as there's a market for her. Then she walks away. As they leave, Sina chuckles in surprise, and Kazuki admires Michiru's professional confidence. Turning to Sina, he says that joining a major company like this could be a huge step toward her dream, then asks if she plans to accept the offer. She's shocked when he steps away and quietly says that he also has his own plans now. Now standing before the towering building of Star Packet Music, he waits nervously. This is where Mitsuki asked him to meet her. Surrounded by the polished atmosphere of an idol agency, he feels completely out of place. The stares from strangers only deepen his awkwardness as he silently wishes for Mitsuki to appear soon. At that moment, a girl gently taps his shoulder from behind and curiously asks if he has an appointment. Flustered, he quickly explains that he's just waiting for someone. But the moment she sees his face, the woman becomes visibly shaken, frantically searching her phone before hesitantly asking, "Is he Mr. Kazakun?" Confused by her formal tone, he realizes she must be a staff member. Just then, the girl spots Mitsuki walking gracefully out of the building and hurriedly urges him to hide. Despite his confusion, he follows her behind the plants, where she whispers that he shouldn't meet Mitsuki in public. Peeking through the leaves, he watches Mitsuki warmly greet a man. The girl apologizes for the sudden reaction, but when he hears her say they just avoided something terrible, he quickly apologizes. She calmly shows her ID and introduces herself as Shirai Kumiko, Mitsuki's manager. When he shows her his phone with Mitsuki's passionate text asking about him, Shirai is stunned that he has her contact. Taking his phone, she replies on Mitsuki's behalf, telling her to go back inside immediately and not step out again. Turning to him with a serious expression, she reveals there's a dangerous secret surrounding Mitsuki, and that being seen with her could put her at risk. But before she can explain, Mitsuki sees the message, and her joy explodes. She dances with delight and rushes back into the building, beaming. Watching her overwhelming excitement from just one message, he stands puzzled. Shirai, determined, decides it's time to tell him everything about Mitsuki's hidden truth. Seeing Kazuki's confused expression, she seriously reminds him how Mitsuki becomes adorably childish and innocent whenever it involves him, completely opposite to her usual cool and elegant idol image. When he nervously wonders if she's joking, she firmly assures him she's not. She then shares a memory from a few years ago when their company was struggling. In search of a new idol, she visited a high school during its cultural festival, but was disappointed not to find anyone with the ideal look or charm. Just when her hopes were fading, she spotted Mitsuki dancing freely in the crowd like she was flying. That moment instantly captivated her. Now standing beside him, she admires how she danced and enchanted everyone. Just seeing her once made her decide to bring her into the agency. When he casually mentions that Mitsuki was dancing to his music that day and asks if Shirai had noticed, she's shocked to realize he had been there too. Brushing aside the surprise, she recalls how Mitsuki seemed guided by a magical force and how she and the boss visited Mitsuki's home several times to recruit her. Before she finishes, he adds that Mitsuki used to hide behind him during those visits, which is why they couldn't talk to her. Surprised again, she realizes he had been part of that moment too. As they reach the reception to get his guest card, she smiles and says that after many tries, she finally agreed to join, on one condition: she would become an idol and live with Kazuki-kun. As he listens to her and hangs the guest card around his neck, Kazuki is left shocked and helpless upon realizing that from the very beginning, Mitsuki's true goal was simply to stay by his side. Without noticing his expression, Shirai-san continues explaining that back then, none of them were aware of Mitsuki's real intention. They had signed her on purely to save the company. But she recalls with sadness that a year later, everyone grew concerned. Mitsuki had started losing her smile and graceful charm once training resumed. Shirai-san shares that one evening while closing up the stadium, she was stunned to see Mitsuki still practicing alone. Peeking inside, she was even more shocked to find Mitsuki talking to Kazuki, calmly reassuring him that she wasn't overworking herself and was doing fine. She was stunned again to discover the truth. Mitsuki wasn't actually texting or calling him. She was speaking to his picture, which made even Shirai-san feel uncomfortable and concerned. Understanding the depth of her attachment, the boss decided to bend the rules and allowed her to use her phone for a while. But even after that, though she kept practicing hard, her health continued to worry them. So one day, Shirai-san visited her during training and upon seeing her worse condition, helplessly handed her the phone. Looking at Kazuki's picture, she immediately began dancing again, this time full of grace and with a smile. Worried, Shirai-san explains that what she truly lacked was Kazuki's presence. As they exit the elevator and walk down the corridor, she adds that the boss, after observing everything carefully, finally gave her permission to live beside him. As Kazuki realizes it was thanks to the manager that Mitsuki could stay with him, he's shocked and asks why the company went to such lengths for one idol. Calmly, manager Shirai explains that Mitsuki saved the company during a crisis, so they did everything they could to protect her and fulfill her one wish, to live with Kazuki. Hearing this, Kazuki smiles gently and promises never to let her suffer again, which eases Shirai's heart a little. Just before opening Mitsuki's dressing room door, Shirai turns to him seriously and asks, though it's late, if he truly wants to support her by hiding his identity. Kazuki softly replies that he's been on her side from the start because seeing her cry from the world's criticism is something he can't bear. Shirai, remembering how Mitsuki once told his photo that she only cared about Kazuki, not the world, gazes at him and murmurs that they're truly made for each other. As she knocks on the door, Shirai tells him that Mitsuki cherishes him more than anyone else. When she opens the door and tells Mitsuki a visitor has come, she reminds her to behave, since being seen with someone could cause issues. But Mitsuki, already aware, shows no reaction until she sees Kazuki. Then, blushing and giggling like a child, she lights up, overjoyed, as if she'd been waiting just for him. Upon seeing Mitsuki's joyful reaction, Shirai is left speechless. She then seriously asks why she invited him to the studio. Mitsuki, admiring his talent, says that his music makes her dance freely, and she simply wants to give him the perfect space to shine. Embarrassed, Kazuki tries to brush it off, but Shirai, suspicious, asks for the real reason behind all this. Kazuki thinks she's just praising him, until he suddenly realizes the true meaning behind her earlier request for a piano in studio. She wants him to work here. Concerned, Shirai silently considers the issue. Even if she supports the idea, the accounting department might not allow it, because Kazuki isn't part of the company, just Mitsuki's friend. But then she asks if he's a student. When Kazuki calmly explains he's a composition major at Imperial College of Music, Shirai is stunned. She shares that Sasoka-san also came from that college, and 3 years ago, the company began scouting its students. But aside from Uzura-san, they hadn't found anyone exceptional until now. This revelation leaves Mitsuki fuming and frustrated. She scolds Shirai passionately for missing out on the world's best musician, but Kazuki gently taps her head to quiet her, trying to calm her with a soft smile. Shirai, now connecting the dots, remembers their company's upcoming participation in the college festival. She explains that if he competes and is selected, he could sign with the company and freely use their piano and studio. Just then, someone knocks to inform Shirai that children have arrived for a field trip. Realizing how quickly time has passed, she apologizes and suggests him take his time to think things over, then leaves, closing the door behind her. Left alone, she apologizes sadly, wishing she could help more, but he pats her head again, brushing off her worry, assuring her that together they'll create something incredible in music. Suddenly, she lights up and excitedly asks if he wants to play the piano. Though he hesitantly admits he would love to, if given the chance, she jumps up with joy and hands him the studio key. As Mitsuki heads to the studio, she stops by the counter room. When the staff member curiously asks if she's using the studio, she beams with excitement, thanking him for the key and promising to return it to the office later. Just as she's about to leave, the staff casually informs her that a group of kindergartners is visiting for a field tour and happily suggests she give them a fun performance. Entering the studio, Kazuki is stunned by the spacious, fully equipped room. Mitsuki stretches happily, taking in the space, and urges him to warm up before playing. When Kazuki pulls out his old music notebook, she becomes emotional and excited, asking if he still writes songs. With glowing enthusiasm, she begs him to play, eager to listen. Motivated by her energy, he smiles and agrees. As he begins playing, Mitsuki rushes to the mic in surprise and delight, shocked that he's already composing the melody for Slash of a Thousand Blades of True Mirage, a song just released last week. It had become a massive hit, celebrated for its innovation, intense solo moments, and stunning performance by True Mirage's center, Mitsuki herself, known for her powerful aura and commanding presence. Meanwhile, in the corridor, Shirai hurriedly speaks on the phone, politely telling the caller she doesn't have time to talk. When the staff comments on her busy schedule, she simply smiles, saying it's a good thing to have work. Just then, she turns with joy to greet the children, only to find the hallway empty. Alarmed, she is told that all the kids went to the studio where Mitsuki is performing. Panic floods her face as she screams in fear. Inside the studio, Mitsuki sings and dances with sparkling delight, captivated by Kazuki's mesmerizing piano skills. He smiles warmly, equally entranced by her passion. Both perform their roles with such heartfelt joy and grace that the moment feels endless, neither wants it to end. As Kazuki subtly shifts the beat on the piano, Mitsuki becomes even more amazed, twirling through the air like she's flying, each step glowing with emotion. He mirrors the feeling, lost in the music, until he notices a few children and a woman peeking in through the window. Outside, the children excitedly ask their teacher if it's really Mitsuki from True Mirage. They beg to go inside, their excitement bubbling over. Though worried, the teacher tries to keep them calm, gently reminding them that even as fans, they must not disturb Mitsuki. She praises Mitsuki's genius and stylish charm, explaining this is a rare chance to witness such a cool performance so up close. But the kids insist, saying even she is a big fan too. As the debate continues, Mitsuki, noticing them from the stage, gives a subtle nod, inviting them in. Overjoyed, the children rush inside gleefully. Meanwhile, in the corridor, Shirei-san senses trouble. Worried and sweating, she races toward the studio, her mind spiraling. Even if he's from Imperial College, it's impossible to perform so flawlessly on the first try. But more than that, she's terrified. If the children or the public were to witness anything romantic between the two, young and alone in a closed studio, it could ruin the agency's reputation. In her panic, she dashes so fast that she slips near the door, screeching to a stop. Without hesitation, she throws the door open, determined to halt whatever is happening, no matter what. As Shirei opens the door, she's taken by surprise. Instead of something troubling, she finds Kazuki playing the piano beautifully, bringing True Mirage's latest song to life. Mitsuki, shining with emotion, sings along with passion, her voice blending perfectly with the rhythm. The moment feels magical. Kazuki's gentle, high-toned notes support Mitsuki's powerful vocals, creating a harmony that sparks something electric inside her. Shirei watches in awe, the children gathered clapping and cheering, completely enchanted by the scene. All the worries she had vanished in an instant. The image of True Mirage remains untouched, cool, stylish, and captivating. And in Kazuki, she no longer sees a risk. Instead, she sees the rare talent their agency had been searching for. When the performance ends, the children burst into cheers, full of joy, asking Mitsuki to sing and dance again. Amid the excitement, the teacher approaches Kazuki, tears shining in her eyes. She keeps praising the performance with trembling hands, completely overwhelmed. Even though she longs to express her feelings to Mitsuki, she can't bring herself to do it, too nervous to meet her idol's eyes. Kazuki gently understands and promises to help carry her emotions across. Just then, a small child tugs at his leg, eyes filled with hope, asking him to play the piano again. Kazuki smiles softly and explains that it's been 3 years since he last played, and his fingers are already cramping. As he glances toward the stage, he sees Mitsuki still full of energy, laughing and dancing with the children. Her stamina, her spirit, he can't help but admire her even more. But Kazuki becomes puzzled when the teacher walks up to him, curiously asking about his identity, explaining that she hadn't noticed him earlier. Before he can respond, Shirei steps in and gently interrupts. She politely requests that the teacher keep everything she saw confidential. Recognizing Shirei as Mitsuki's manager and an original member of the agency, the teacher lights up with excitement and eagerly agrees to keep it a secret. After a moment of hesitation, Shirei finally reveals that Kazuki's identity hasn't been officially announced yet, but he is actually True Mirage's newest performing musician. Both Mitsuki and Kazuki are stunned by the unexpected announcement. As Shirei tries to explain to the teacher that Kazuki is the agency's new musician, she suddenly winks at him. Understanding it's just a cover story to avoid spreading any rumors, Kazuki plays along and confidently declares that he'll do his best for the company. The teacher, feeling a bit embarrassed about her earlier behavior, gently steps closer, apologizes, and affectionately holds his hands. She promises to keep their identities a secret and cheerfully mentions that she's planning to buy 20 more copies of the new album, despite already owning 50. Kazuki smiles and gently suggests she share all those feelings directly with the artist, while glancing over at Mitsuki striking cute poses for selfies. In his mind, it still feels like a joke to think someone as important as Shirei would call him part of this famous company. But later, while returning home after shopping, Kazuki receives a sudden call from Shirei. He's shocked, wondering if what she said earlier was actually true, since he believed it was just an excuse for the teacher. Calmly, Shirei confirms his doubts. Yes, it was a cover, but she seriously meant everything else. She praises his piano skills and how Mitsuki's performance instantly improved just by having him beside her. He humbly thanks her, and then she switches to a professional tone. She asks if he truly wants to join their agency as a pianist. To make Mitsuki the top-ranked idol, she explains he must stay by her side. Shirei urgently adds that Sasoka Makiri is breaking into the anime scene and gaining massive popularity, which could threaten Mitsuki's image. Without wasting time, she directly encourages Kazuki to make the best use of his extraordinary and breathtaking piano talent for the future of True Mirage. He feels a bit nervous since he hasn't touched the piano in a long time, and he knows how important it is to play accurately and match the tempo. Even though his fingers feel numb, he recalls how happily he played yesterday for Mitsuki, his childhood friend. Understanding everything now, he tells her his one condition: to stop all other activities and focus only on making Mitsuki the top idol. Shirai happily agrees right away. As he opens his apartment door, Shirai brings up one more condition. But sensing someone's inside, she curiously asks, and he replies that Mitsuki is sleeping in his room. At that moment, Mitsuki rubs her eyes, wakes up, and asks who he's talking to. Then she suddenly gets upset and questions if it's a girl. Though he tries to explain it's manager Shirai, she doesn't listen and sadly grabs his phone, completely misunderstanding and thinking he's enjoying a chat with another girl. Shirai, panicked by the misunderstanding, quickly shows Mitsuki a video proving she's still at the office and only making a business call. Confirming it's really Shirai, Mitsuki admires her hard work, then quietly sinks back into the pillow of sleep. Meanwhile, in the office, Shirai exhales in relief and rests her head on the desk, catching the attention of her coworkers. But when she turns around, they all quickly look away. Later, as he places things in the fridge, Shirai informs him about Mitsuki's daily needs, reminding him to care for her both in public and during practice. She explains that back when Mitsuki stayed at the company residence, a full team was assigned to look after her due to the constant risk of trouble. He tries to assure her that he'll handle everything, but she recalls one night when Mitsuki spotted a cockroach and refused to sleep until it was gone. Manager Shirai, unaware of such things, had to chase it down herself, and the chaos lasted until morning. She also warns him to keep an eye on Mitsuki's eating habits. After sharing all these crucial details, Shirai, doing her best to prepare Mitsuki for her next live show, finally entrusts him with the responsibility of taking care of her private life. Shirai asks him to check Mitsuki's room, so he peeks in, sees her sleeping, and quietly sighs, calling himself her lifesaver, promising nothing bad will happen again. Shirai explains Mitsuki hates relying on others, so she's trusting him due to his past with her. He agrees to help. He softly calls Mitsuki, waving and whispering that Shirai appointed him as her manager and he is going to check her room. Half asleep, she turns and mumbles the keys are in her back pocket. As he moves closer, she shifts and hugs him innocently. He recalls how he always pampered her, sits close, mesmerized by her sweet smile, but quickly restrains himself, knowing he must stay focused or he'll ruin her career. Exhaling, he gently takes the keys, shuts his eyes, and quietly leaves, closing the door behind him. Just after, Mitsuki sits up dazed, stares blankly, then drops back on the pillow. As she lies there, she fondly recalls dancing happily to his piano yesterday, smiling softly, realizing Kazu-kun enjoyed playing too. Still yawning, Mitsuki rolls on the bed, thinking back to the years she dreamed of living with Kazu-kun. She decides to wait a bit longer, smiling at the thought that her childhood friend is now her manager and is about to clean her room. But suddenly reality hits, he's actually cleaning her apartment. Her sleep vanishes in a flash, and she bolts out, panicked, screaming for him to stop. Meanwhile, Kazu opens the door and is stunned by the chaotic mess inside. He recalls how, back then, she'd always make him wait 10 minutes outside before letting him in, and how her closet looked ready to explode. His thoughts are cut off when Mitsuki, flustered and embarrassed, rushes over, shouting, nervously claiming she had planned to clean today. But instead of judging her, Kazu smiles and playfully suggests they clean it together. She instantly lights up and happily agrees. Mitsuki is now enjoying a warm bath and turns off the shower once she's done. Meanwhile, he returns from the public bath and receives her message asking him to bring fast food as a reward for cleaning the room. He stops by a shop to pick it up. Back at her apartment, they cheer and clink their drinks. He feels relaxed, despite 5 hours of hard work, and the room finally looks neat. She quickly sips her drink, then loudly begins eating her fast food. He reminds her not to talk while eating, but she takes a huge bite with a blush, declaring she earned it after all her effort. Agreeing with her, he teases that she should always clean her room with him, which makes her blush even more. As he drinks, he finds it almost surreal to be sharing this moment with his childhood friend. She feels the same, especially now that he's also her manager, so she excitedly decides to introduce him to Kiri-chan and Saki-chan too. While eating her fries, she happily shares how she had always dreamed of enjoying this kind of food. He looks puzzled, wondering why fast food is a reward, but she explains with a hint of sadness that her company never allowed it when she lived in their dorm. Blushing and savoring each bite affectionately, she suddenly offers him one of her fries, saying it's his favorite, covered in his preferred sauce. Her closeness catches him off guard, making him feel as if he's enjoying a peaceful moment in nature while playing his melodies, but he quickly snaps back to reality as she claps joyfully after feeding him, then shyly turns away and sweetly offers her lap as a pillow. Surprised by her boldness, he wonders if she's drunk from just one drink, but she immediately corrects him, saying she's not drunk at all. Embarrassed, he quickly composes himself and explains that he didn't say anything, he was just thinking about heading back to his apartment. Her expression turns sad, and like a sweet, innocent child, she softly asks him to follow her. Realizing she might actually be tipsy, he hurriedly tries to finish his drink, planning to head back to his apartment before he loses control of his emotions. But just as he gets up to leave, she suddenly pulls him close, gently places his head on her lap, and begins stroking his hair affectionately. At that moment, he finally understands why Manager Shirai entrusted him with this role. It's because he can be trusted to care for her sincerely. As he humbly reflects on how it now feels like she's the one taking care of him, his thoughts shift to reality, how their rival idol company is gaining more fame. Looking at her, he gently promises that he'll help her become Japan's #1 idol. She's surprised at first, but then smiles warmly and agrees. Just as she reaches out to touch his head again, he suddenly sits up and looks at her seriously, asking why she really wanted to become an idol. He reminds her that she once said she had forgotten the reason. This time, with a shy blush, she smiles and says it was his beautiful piano that inspired her to sing and dance, and that she wanted to share their happiness with the whole world. Then, with a hint of sadness, she admits she was disappointed when he stopped playing, though she always respected his choice. Finally, she softly confesses that even after 3 years, whenever he plays the piano, she still wants to be by his side. After hearing all her heartfelt thoughts, he gently shares his own dream, to make her so famous that the whole world would admire her talent and passion. When she curiously brings up Mishiri as a tough rival, he reassuringly holds her hands and promises that, with his songs and piano, he'll do everything he can to help her and True Mirage become Japan's #1. When she sweetly expresses her dream of performing a sold-out show at Budokan with him, he immediately makes a promise to make it happen. Then, when she asks why he hasn't been playing piano recently, he admits he's grown to dislike it. But just to make her happy, he agrees to give it his all. They both vow to work incredibly hard to reach their dreams. Seeing her more fired up than even himself, he softly pulls her into a calming hug and tells her to take a little rest first. She looks up at him with a teasing smile, reminding him that he's been working just as hard too. The next day, he carefully reviews the application for performing at the Tito Music Festival, deeply reflecting on how anyone can participate, yet only the top 10 ranked groups from A to J are chosen to perform for the main crowd. Each participant gets 30 minutes for 5 performances. Interestingly, even smaller or lesser-known acts often attract more attention than the high-ranking groups. When that happens, they can be promoted and perform on the bigger stage. Everything is decided purely on merit. He remembers that over 100 groups participated the previous year. Just as he's lost in thought on the staircase, he notices Michiru-san coming down the stairs, followed by a man who's trying to talk to her. She's completely ignoring him. Suddenly, she spots him and rushes over with excitement, apologizing as she waves at him to wait. Though he's confused by her sudden enthusiasm, she unexpectedly grabs him by the collar. The man behind her stops, watching the scene unfold with a puzzled expression. Now they sit in a peaceful, quiet place where he offers her a cup of beverage and asks about the man who's been following her. Irritated, she explains that the stranger is nothing but trouble, always trying to get too close. Curious, he asks if popular people often face this kind of trouble. She, slightly annoyed, nods and shares how at school people rush to shake her hand and how teachers even ask for her signature on music papers, hoping it will help their students improve. He then asks if she believes that's true, to which she firmly denies, insisting that improvement comes only from hard work and practice, not signatures. He, still curious, asks if she signed the papers. Without answering, she takes a sip of her beverage, then sips again, silently acknowledging the question. Realizing the cup in her hands, she looks shocked and asks him about it. He calmly explains that it's just a caramel latte and asks if she likes it. She, still puzzled and a bit confused, exclaims in surprise, not understanding why she's drinking it with him. He reminds her that she was the one who brought him here. But before she can reply, the application form catches her attention, and she excitedly inquires if he's going to perform there as well. With an emotionless tone, he simply declares that he's thinking about it, and asks if they even allow him to participate since he hasn't practiced in previous years. While she ponders the question, their conversation is interrupted by the excited cheering noises of people nearby. As he stands up to take a look around, she informs him that they are promoting themselves As the band is performing in Venue E, he looks shocked, realizing that the festival hasn't even started yet. She then sadly shares with him a secret. Although it was supposed to be a fair contest, one of her fans on the committee told her that it wouldn't be fair after all. This makes him a little sad. He then asks if she is also participating in this. With excitement and a hint of attitude, she proudly responds that she's performing in Venue A, which he obviously already knows. The scene shifts to the Star Planet music venue, where manager Shirai looks worried as she examines the invitation application from the True Mirage band to participate in the Tito Music Festival.
Here I am,